Today, we're looking at a job that takes what it means to be simple and dials it up to 15, the Black Mage. The Black Mage is a very straightforward job, having the sole desire to exploit any fire, water, or thunder weaknesses found on their targets, while being supported by specialties that help remove any obstacles that might impede said desire. Though a direct hit from an enemy is usually enough to send any Black Mage 6 feet under. Since I've already discussed what jobs are in my Freelancer video, we can head straight to the Black Mage's specialties. First up is Regenerative Default. Each time the user defaults in combat, they will restore an amount of MP that is equal to their current level. If you're level 1, you'll restore 1 MP. If you're level 99, you'll restore 99 MP. Simple enough. This specialty is a pretty decent self-sustaining tool, especially as you continue to rise in level and reach the point where the amount of MP you restore surpasses the magic required to cast spells. Pairing this with any MP-reducing passive or equipment, and your Black Mage will actively have to go out of their way to run out of MP. The Black Mage's second specialty, obtained at job level 12, is High Velocity Spells. This specialty prevents all attack spells that the Black Mage has from being nullified or absorbed by their targets, though Reflect and Resistances will still be applied. Being able to just sling spells with the only real concern being your damage output being reduced is quite beneficial, especially as the game progresses and enemies gain more immunities. This specialty also benefits from any attack magic from sub-jobs you slot onto the Black Mage, giving them more coverage in combat than they otherwise would have. Next is the Black Mage's special move, Iceberg Blast. This move will strike all enemies on the field with a water-imbued magic attack, with the bonus effect of raising the whole party's magical defense by 30%. This attack does deal some respectable damage early on, and the magic defense buff is handy in encounters where magic might be a problem. Thankfully, this move is also very easy to spam when navigating dungeons, since the requirement to charge it up is to just use black magic 13 times. Although there is one important thing to note, which is that Iceberg Blast does not benefit from the High Velocity Spell specialty, and will still be absorbed or nullified. Other than that, slinging this specialty around all willy-nilly is pretty reliable. Now we move on to the Black Mage's combat abilities. The Black Mage deals with magic spells, which have the ability to target either a single foe or all of them at once. Targeting one enemy will apply the full force of the attack onto that one enemy, but choosing to hit all foes will spread out the damage of the spell, weakening its potency on each target. Since this is our first magic caster job that we're covering, I'll also briefly mention that most of the jobs in this archetype usually have a few key abilities that, upon leveling up, just keep getting upgraded versions of themselves to match the point of the game that you're in. So, in the case of a Black Mage, their first 3 abilities are Fire, Blizzard, and Thunder. Each of these abilities attack a target with a specified element, dealing a respectable amount of damage, with said damage being intensified if you hit an enemy's elemental weakness. Now, the Black Mage doesn't just have these 3 spells. They have not 1, not 2, but 3 upgrades to these spells as they level up, totaling to 12 of their 15 levels being either Fire, Blizzard, or Thunder magic. Each of these upgrades raise the MP cost and damage output of those spells, letting the Black Mage keep up with the increasing defenses and HP of late-game enemies. However, the final tier of magic the Black Mage has access to, being Flare, Freeze, and Burst, are only single-target spells, meaning that if you want to group cast them, you'll need either the Sword of Light equipped or the across-the-board passive. It's pretty obvious that this is the Black Mage's bread and butter, and with their second specialty, they can dish out consistent damage with these 3 elements for pretty much the entire game without too much fuss over whether or not an enemy will completely shut out their moveset. Now, there is one spell that the Black Mage has that isn't tied to their main 3 elemental magics, and that is Poison, obtained at job level 4. Poison is an ailment that can be applied to a target that will deal damage to them after their turn has concluded. This overall damage dealt by Poison isn't really all that much, but because it lasts for a long time and isn't a common resistance by bosses, this spell can be used to whittle down strong enemies over a long period of time, especially if you're afraid that risking going on the offense might put your team in an early grave. Now we move on to the Black Mage's passive abilities. Yeah, already. First up at job level 5 is Lunar Power. At nighttime, the user's offensive magic, evasion, and luck are raised by 10%, with 4% of the user's max MP also being restored each turn. This is an incredible buff that has a very easy requirement to meet, so it should be almost always taken advantage of when doing anything that requires fighting. Really, the only time where a passive like this isn't super helpful is when you don't really need the MP regen or evasion and want to lean heavily into boosting magic damage. There are other passives that help with that more. Overall, a wonderful passive. And the other passive Black Mage obtains is Aspire Attack at level 9. This passive lets the user use conventional attacks to regain their MP, with 3.4% of the damage dealt being restored as MP. Note that this only applies to conventional attacks, not abilities. This passive is definitely more helpful for jobs that bounce back and forth from using basic attacks and their MP in combat, and less so for the Black Mage themselves. Although I guess it can be a decent self-sustain tool for the job if you want it to be, though it isn't the first choice I would have in mind. One last thing to note though is that if you attack any undead opponent with this passive on, you will lose MP rather than gain, since restorative effects like this are inverted with that enemy family. The Black Mage's game plan never really changes all that much throughout the game, as it almost always will be trying to dish out as much damage as possible while falling back on poison when you need to play safe. MP management is never really a big issue thanks to Lunar Powered and their regenerative default specialty, meaning that this job can just keep the pressure going for as long as the fight lasts. However, it would be wrong to not point out that the Black Mage has a bad case of tunnel vision, which is where a handy sub-job comes into play to give the Black Mage more variety in battle. First, Red Mage can provide not only 2 more elements for the Black Mage to cast, in the form of wind and earth magic, but it also gives a decent healing tool as well, letting the Black Mage play as an emergency support job if a fight isn't going well. Hell, in certain cases, they could even be the main damage dealer and the main support caster. This isn't even mentioning Chain Spell, which just lets the Black Mage go off on enemies even more for no extra MP cost. Now, the Oracle leans a bit more into the support side of things, letting the Black Mage apply buffs and debuffs like an Elemental Impairment in combat. And while it doesn't give Black Mage a new element to work with, Triple Magic is a powerful set of spells that are welcome in the Black Mage's repertoire. Reflect being available also allows for reflection strategies against pesky foes that try to sneak by your high-velocity spell specialty. Next is the Pictomancer, which is more so to let the Black Mage play as a debuffer that can also deal some good damage. This job makes them more of a team player, while also giving them access to simple light and dark magic spells. Or you can go all the way into Crazy Town with Arcanist and just blast everyone with unblockable spells that deal massive damage. While it would actually be better to run this build the other way around with Arcanist as the main job, if you like the aesthetic of the Black Mage more, this build won't do you much wrong. The Black Mage overall, though, is a simple job with a very, very simple goal. Kill the target in front of you. And for the most part, they succeed quite well at this, even if it comes at the cost of some variety in spells compared to other RPGs with this same archetype. This job is effectively an unending fountain of MP that can just rain hell for as long as they want, with the only real obstacle in their way from dealing damage being the Reflect spell. Although, when it comes to looking at their stats, it is unfortunate to see that even with their specialized spell list, the Black Mage isn't the best fit for an all-out damage mage, playing second fiddle to the Arcanist, and in even some cases, the Red Mage. This job is also really slow, and can't take a hit to save their damn life. But honestly, if the aesthetic of the Black Mage and knowledge of the job is very easy to pick up and optimize is alluring to you, then who cares if there are better options out there? Don your black raincoat and fedora, and go send some suckers to hell! And speaking of the design of the Black Mage, that leads us into our fashion tier list. Starting with Seth, he actually has a pretty different Black Mage look from the other 3, not having the same raincoat feel as the others, substituting it out for a smaller jacket with a hood that has these like little red and black trails on them. It's kinda neat. The dark brown vest is also a pretty good look for Seth. But, of course, the star of the show is definitely the hat. A good hat is the sign of a good Black Mage, after all, and not only is the design really good, but Seth also wears it like a natural. This look also gets some bonus points for reminding me of Arden from Final Fantasy XV. Awesome design that, while not as iconic as the Final Fantasy Black Mage look, still impresses me enough to put it in A tier. Second up is Gloria. Now, she has removed the hat in favor of putting her hair up and wearing the coat's hood. She has the full black attire from head to toe. This is definitely one of the few outfits that makes me not want to run into Gloria in a dark alley. I feel like something bad would go down. Overall, solid look for her that works well even without the hat. B tier. Third is Elvis, and hoo boy do we have a design here. Now, this might be cheating, but since this is the look that was used for Elvis in almost all of the promotional work for Bravely Default 2, I've always associated the Black Mage with our man here. And I just want to say that this Elvis design definitely helped hype me up for this game even more than I already was before release. The black and yellow combination is very well done here, and the tip-down fedora fits Elvis's relaxed and suave personality so flippin' well. An amazing design that is iconic in its own way, even if it hasn't replaced what a Black Mage should look like in my head. Easy S-tier design. Congrats, Elvis. Now, poor Adele has to follow up the look for Elvis, and what we have here is pretty decent. Like Gloria, Adele abandons the hat and decides to put a really pretty blue flower headband on. Adele's design also looks a lot more vibrant, in a sense to me, with there being a strong contrast between the black and white in her coat, rather than it just being pure black. Good design that nets Adele a B tier slot.